Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Discover Thrawn's origins within the Chiss Ascendancy in the first title in an epic new Star Wars trilogy, beginning with Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy. Written by bestselling author Timothy Zahn and read by Mark Thompson, Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy is on sale now wherever audiobooks are sold.
This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi, show number 360. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I'm your host, Dan Z, drinking One Nation coffee out of my Boba's Beans coffee mug that I got at Celebration, which is the perfect mug for this show because this mug reminds me of friendship, and I am honored to have Frey and Amiyrah Martin on today, talking about something we never have talked about on Coffee with Kenobi. We're going to address what Daisy Ridley said about the possibility of a change early on in the narrative of the rise of Skywalker. We will certainly address why we're talking about this topic, and we will also discuss briefly the debut of the Season 2 trailer of The Mandalorian. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some Coffee with Kenobi.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Joining me today for a cup of coffee are two very special guests and familiar voices / faces to Coffee with Kenobi. First, we're going to bring in from Full of Sith and countless other podcasts. I stopped counting on my fingers because I ran out of them. Holly Frey.
I, too, have stopped counting them. So it's great to be with you again, Dan.
Yes, it's so good. What's going on with you these days? I know you, of course, are never busy and you're a very idle person, but
just lie down all the time and I'm fed grapes, Grecian style.
Yes.
He probably would if I asked him, but so still working on stuff you missed in history class. I have a new podcast that is part of our iHeartRadio's partnership with Shondaland, which is called Criminalia, which is a historical true crime podcast. Right now, our first season is all about lady poisoners. I also have a podcast going until the election called Why I'm Voting, where I interview famous people, for the most part, about why they vote and what motivates them to cast their ballots. And then I am also lucky enough right now to be hosting the Raised by Wolves companion podcast for HBO.
Unbelievable. I mean, seriously, you and our other co-host always inspire me with your passion and your tireless enthusiasm. I really appreciate the both of you.
So kind.
Well, I mean, you did send me a nice check, so.
$1 million.
Speaking of awesome, as I just mentioned, my other co-host is also an inspiration to me. Of course, we met on the Target Rogue One commercial since we are commercial buddies for life. Of course, I'm talking about Amiyrah Martin.
Yes. Hello, my brother. How are you, Dan?
I am so good, and I'm glad to see and hear from you and that you and your family are doing well. What's going on in your world?
Oh, well, we're adjusting to how things are currently in the world. We are still on our homeschool journey, so we've been documenting that quite a bit lately. Since I now have a 15-year-old, 10-year-old, and 6-year-old, we are trying to maneuver school and all of that fun stuff that happens right here in our home, and me continuing my platform, talking about how to live a full life and how to have fun with your family and not spend $1 million doing it, and how we incorporate a lot of Star Wars and Disney into everything that we learn in the house and every little tidbit of life here at the Martin household.
Well, I mean, your Four and Frugal is such a great place to go. Your social media is awesome. And the homeschool things that you do are, I think, are really important, especially with remote learning. And, of course, as an educator in my day job, I know how important it is for parents and teachers. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, you're a superhero, especially now. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, you're very kind. You are very kind. So, see, you got my check, too. I love it. It's reciprocal.
He actually just signed the back of mine and sent it to you.
Yes.
Is that how that one worked?
It's
that's the circle.
Yeah,
that's the circle that we're doing right now. Yeah,
forward 2 on the signature. That's good stuff. All right, so we're going to talk some Star Wars. The main topic is going to be something where I break a rule I've never broken on Coffee with Kenobi. I'm going to address rumors / speculation / things that never actually happened with an interview that Daisy Ridley did. But before we do that, I would be remiss if I did not at least bring up the Season 2 trailer of The Mandalorian since it debuted the day of this recording. Holly, we're going to start with you. Your initial thoughts on this amazing new trailer?
My initial thoughts might be different than other people's. Quarren, so many Quarren. Are we on Mon Cala? That's what I'm most excited about.
I love it. That's it. That's all you've got.
I, like everyone else, was very excited to see the baby experience Snow and to see him go into his little turtle shell maneuver when things were getting very real in that boxing arena. But I really was legitimately so freakishly excited to see Quarren in abundance.
Isn't that great? And your knowledge of Star Wars is so insanely extensive. So I love that you caught that. You know what else, ladies? I just thought about this when Holly mentioned what she was excited about. There's actually going to be the child / baby Yoda footprints in the snow.
Right?
Is there anything cuter?
Oh my gosh.
That business is going to be like weapons grade cute.
It's going to be almost too much. I can feel it in my bones.
It's so true. Have either of you seen the Lego minifigure of the child that came with the Razor Crest? It's the cutest thing ever.
I don't think I have seen it in person. I think have the Razor Crest and have not taken it out of its box yet.
Oh, yeah, that's how we are here too.
I'll send you both a picture. It's pretty cute. It's so cute. You almost want to eat it like a little mint, but don't do that.
Oh my gosh.
You know what you could do though? You could cast it and make chocolate ones.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Ooh.
Look, I'll figure out a way to eat that child.
All right, Amiyrah, what about you? Initial thoughts on the Mandalorian Season 2 trailer?
Well, I love that they didn't show us much, which is my favorite thing. I absolutely love a trailer and I see there's a lot of speculation. There's been speculation all day. What was this part? And I saw a lot of Sabine talk today. But I was just like, you know what? They didn't give us much. And I really appreciate when they do that. And I got to see it for the first time with my 6-year-old because he is the Mandalorian fanboy in the house. So it was nice to see him react to, everything that was in the trailer. And it was a type of trailer where he would completely enjoy it. We didn't get like a special storyline just yet. It was just enough to whet our palates and get us ready for October. And that's all we need right now. So I was very pleased.
Absolutely. I don't want to know anything about the story. I don't want to see any big reveals. And I know this is certainly the uncouth thing to do on social media, but I'm not someone who's going to freeze a frame and try to guess who everybody is. I'm just going to sort of take it in, enjoy it for what it is. And I like to be surprised. If I wanted to open my Christmas presents on Halloween, I would start analyzing this trailer, but I'm not that person.
Yes, I agree. I think they did very well with our 1 minute 32-second trailer today.
Yes, well noted. Holly, what about you? How are you on the whole speculation thing? Where are you on that?
I'm sort of in the middle ground. Like I don't mind speculating, and I do like to occasionally freeze frame things and look at them. But as you may have guessed from my other initial reaction, I'm really more interested in the background stuff and not trying to suss out what the story necessarily is. Like, to me, that's a fast track to the road to disappointment, right? Like, people get really attached to their theory, and the odds of that ever being how it really plays out are low. And I don't want to get in that cycle. I just want to see storytellers tell their stories, but also maybe check out and see if, there are any cool aliens in the background.
Yeah, things that add to the lore, things that borrow from the lore, and because there's such a wonderful mythology that Star Wars has. So why not dive into that? And with someone like Dave Filoni at the helm, that you're going to see exactly that. And I thought it was great fun. I love, like you said, the turtle maneuver. I hadn't heard it described that way, but that's pretty wonderful. So fun, so cute, and just the mystique of Din Djarin. I really like the fact that we have a nautical scene where they're on water on a boat. I don't really remember it being like that in a live action Star Wars, so that's going to be great fun.
Yeah, we get like Star Wars longshoremen for the first time. I love it.
Yes.
That's right.
They're trying to expand our horizons here. Give us a little bit more to look forward to. I appreciate that.
That's right. We're all enriched because of that. What did you say?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. All right. So I don't know if this is going to be an enriching conversation or not. With the two of you, it certainly is going to be. But in general, as I said at the top of the show, I don't normally address things that may have been. I like to deal with what is, not what might be. But either way, it's still a fun conversation. And what I'm talking about is last week, Daisy Ridley did an interview on The Tonight Show. Josh Gad was the guest co-host. And, Josh, or guest host, he's the best. Anyway, but he asked Daisy Ridley about Rey and her family, her lineage, her history. So before we actually address what was said and what's talked about, I want to ask you both what you thought and still think about The Rise of Skywalker just as a motion picture cinematic experience. Amiyrah, we'll start with you.
I highly enjoyed it, but I did express my concern of it being like they tied the bow a little bit too quickly for me, and they tied it so quickly. And it was so rushed kind of that I kind of couldn't catch my breath when I was watching it. Of course, we saw it 6 times in theaters, but also there was so much that needed to be brought back into the storyline and wrapped up that it got a bit overwhelming with the story that they were trying to tell. Now, I think they ended it pretty well, especially with Rey. She doesn't have to come back. It would be great, but she doesn't. And I appreciate how it was ended, and that JJ kind of took the time to do that for us. But there was just so much left. And I wanted it to be a complete story where we weren't learning about new characters as well and not completing their story, but also where the characters we fell in love with in 7 were complete, like truly complete by the end of Rise of Skywalker. And we were able to go, okay, I feel good how that ended. It was a lot. It was a lot. And it still is, even when I watch it. It's a lot to take in. And with this new interview, I know people are bringing back those old emotions that they may have had about, how the storyline was and what we were given, and kind of rehashing their opinions about how it should have ended, quote unquote.
For sure. And Holly, what about you? Overall sort of impressions of the final film of the Skywalker saga?
Of the sequel films, it's probably my least favorite. But the thing is, right, it's still Star Wars. So even if there are elements that I don't love about it, there are lots that I do love. Like, I'm not the biggest fan. And again, this is just my thing. I'm not dogging anybody who is the biggest fan of this. Like, I don't love the Ben and Rey romance. It's just not my jam. And I would have been more delighted, I think, had Rey ultimately been a nobody, because I love the idea of the democratization of the Force. But again, none of that chagrined me in any kind of deep existential way. There's still so much beautiful stuff to look at. I would really, really love a Zori Bliss series. But yeah, I mean, it's super fun. It's Star Wars, right? Like Amiyrah, I was like, well, this isn't my favorite, but I still went and saw it in the theater a whole bunch of times. Because there's always great stuff to look at, and like visually, you're not going to get anything better. And there are parts of the story that I really, really did love. So it's a mixed bag for me, but I mean, it's Star Wars at the end of the day. So
Well, I think the Force is with us because it appears the three of us are on three sides of the spectrum, which I think is wonderful. And I like what you said, it's still Star Wars. And I've always said Star Wars is like pizza. Even when it's not great, it's better than anything else.
Right.
But I would call The Rise of Skywalker a really bad frozen pizza that's been in the freezer probably a little bit too long.
Don't sugarcoat it, Dan. How do you feel?
Oh, I haven't even started. No, it's. I think The Last Jedi is a masterpiece, and I think it elevates the narrative and the power of this mythology to a level unprecedented in Star Wars. And then I feel like The Rise of Skywalker kind of missed the boat, and in fact, it's my least favorite Star Wars film. That being said, there are certain elements that I like. I think Daisy Ridley was amazing. For the first time, and I know, Amiyrah, this is going to put us at odds, I actually liked Kylo Ren. I thought his story was finally strong, and I thought he worked really well. I didn't think it was possible for me to like for him to be redeemed. I didn't think that would be plausible, and I think that they made it work. I was disappointed that Ben Solo had no lines except for "ow." I think that's a huge problem, and I think that Rey was my favorite character in the sequel trilogy, and I feel like she did a disservice. And even saying this out loud, I don't usually say these kind of things on Coffee with Kenobi because I've never quibbled with how a story in Star Wars is told. I may not like every nuance, but I still appreciate the mythology and the effort, and I still appreciate the mythology and the effort. But the way this story was told fell flat for me, and I think that one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, well, I think there are two. One, I think Poe and Finn were not given their just due in the story, and I think they dropped certain threads, especially with Finn. It just kind of went away. His sensitivity with the Force and his dynamic with Rose was completely eradicated for no story-driven reason. And then the fact that Rey is the granddaughter of Palpatine. Before we address the interview itself, and Holly, we'll just go back to you for this one to start off. How do you feel about Rey as a Palpatine? Does that strengthen or lessen her? I know there was a lot of consternation online about how she's related. Does that diminish her as a character? Where do you feel about that?
I mean, like I said before, I really loved the idea of her as a nobody. To me, that was sort of the great setup of Last Jedi, was that there is the potential for anyone to be a hero, right? And that's kind of like that final shot of Last Jedi with the kid with the broom, where you're like, oh, there are a lot of people who could potentially rise up and make something really amazing. I never got attached to any of the theories about her lineage. I wasn't ever super confident that they would make her a nobody, even though that was kind of my favored. I mean, I certainly know there are people that were rooting for it to be any number of people, whether that be, for her to be a Kenobi or a Solo, and there was a time after Force Awakens where I thought she might be a Solo. But yeah, I don't love her being Palpatine's offspring.
But
I don't know what I would have loved.
Right. Well, I think it sounds like you mentioned it, and I feel the same way. I thought that her being a nobody was excellent because I think one of the best things about Star Wars is it is about family, not always a surrogate family. This is the notion that Rey is someone, and being a teacher and coming from a divorced family myself, I think it's very powerful to say, you know what, who your parents are, who they aren't, that doesn't define who you are. You get to shape your own destiny, your own path. And I just love that so much. I mean, they could have had her related to porgs, and I would have been fine with it. But for some reason,
Palpatine did some weird science, so we don't know that that's ruled out.
That's true. That's true. But I still think, for some reason, the notion of her being a Palpatine, Amiyrah, it just it seemed a little bit, I don't know, it just didn't seem to fit with what they had planned from the beginning. And we're going to get to how story and narrative is structured anyway. But what do you think, Amiyrah?
I mean, I agree with the two of you, obviously. I actually love The Last Jedi. When I came out of seeing that, I cried. Like, I cried so many tears because I loved that story. And I know that many do not, but I've been fighting that fight since I saw it. I thought it was so poetic. I love the little touches of comedy in it. And I love the ending. Just like the two of you said, I love that she didn't have a lineage that we could guess. It was she's just a girl, a scavenger, but she turns out to be one of the most powerful beings. And I think that if they would have just left that alone, the connection that people could have kept with her, it just would have taken it to another level, because people connect with Rey, obviously. But it just would have been at a totally different level, because so many people think, well, I don't come from this type of background, so do I mean something? And I know that's taking it to such a deep end for Star Wars, but these types of films touch people in those ways. And I think if they would have just left that where it was, that we could have gotten a better storyline. And 9, we could have gotten it. The Palpatine thing, as soon as we heard the voice and all of that, and we found out the connection, I could see why maybe they would connect it. Just kind of giving the prequel lovers a little taste to get them excited, and giving those of us who love the originals our taste of it. But it felt like it came out of thin air. Am I allowed to say that?
Of course. It's encouraged.
Like, it did not feel like it was part of the story we were supposed to have from the beginning, which is
fair.
Disappointing. But, they made it work, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Holly, you want to add to that before I ask the next question?
Thinking. No. I'm sorry to be that horrible person that answers a question in a discussion with no. No, but I think Amiyrah put it really beautifully, right? It seemed it was a little startling, not necessarily in like that was an amazing reveal, but kind of like did we really have, okay.
It was a gimmick. It felt like a gimmick. It didn't feel like an organic part of storytelling that was telegraphed from the beginning. And I don't mean telegraphed because I like to be surprised. Obviously, I'm so anti-spoiler anyway. But it's more like, were there seeds planted? So let's just go ahead and talk about what Daisy really talked about with Josh Gad. And Josh point blank asked her, talk about Rey's lineage, where she was from. Is that something that was planted from the beginning? And she said, no, it was changing a lot. They toyed with the idea of her being a Kenobi. Then she was going to be a nobody for a while. And then they said, oh, you're Palpatine's granddaughter. And then they said, no, actually, we're going to do something else. So that in and of itself is not bad. That is not bad storytelling. This is how it works. And people who are fans of this mythology, both behind the camera and in front of the camera, are well aware that Darth Vader wasn't Luke's father in A New Hope. That was not the plan. There wasn't really necessarily a plan or a clear, concrete vision. Luke and Leia were not brother and sister until Return of the Jedi was being created. So it's not like this is something that is unheard of. The storytelling, and when you and I were texting before this happened, we talked very briefly about how stories are told, and this in and of itself is not an indicator that Lucasfilm or Disney is failing.
No,
because you'll hear that, and it's silly. It's absurd.
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? This is a dangerous space because I get a little soapboxy. One, there are so many instances throughout film history of creators who were making significant changes to films as they go, right? The thing I thought of, which isn't quite a one-to-one comparison, but like everyone that I know, I'm trying to think if I've ever known a detractor to this particular statement, thinks, for example, that Hayao Miyazaki is a genius. Do you know none of his films are planned? They animate in order because they're making it up as they go along. So, like, when you look at something like a Spirited Away or a Totoro or, any of those that are these amazing, super creative things, they didn't know when they started production where that was going to land. They didn't know what the story beats were. They didn't know. They may have had, like, vague outline, but everything changes, and that's part of the creative process, right? Like, I don't know anybody that is creative and has ever made a thing, whether that's like a painting, a garment, a short film, a long film, a book. Like, everything goes through massive changes along the way. And so it's frustrating to me to see people that maybe aren't necessarily creators in that way placing judgments on the way that creatives do work, because, like, that's not your right, frankly.
And it's very limiting.
Is that too harsh?
No, that's not harsh enough. Come on. Did I get the right Holly on the phone? Come on. No, right. I think I totally agree with you. And I agree. There's, if people have ever written something that is longer than 280 characters, then they understand that there is a process that goes to creating, that goes to writing. Heck, even telling my kids a bedtime story, it goes through a lot of iterations in my mind. Right. That's just a natural process. That in and of itself is not a measure. And quite honestly, I'm breaking a lot of Coffee with Kenobi rules. I think Kathleen Kennedy is wonderful. I think she's a nice person. I've had the good fortune to talk with her a few times. And I know that this is very important to her. This is not only her job, but she's passionate about stories and storytelling. I mean, George Lucas personally handed her the company, and it was for a reason. Because she's good at what she does. Because however it worked, it didn't work. It's okay. This is an organic part of storytelling, very much a part of the storytelling process. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, I will return with Amiyrah and Holly to discuss how stories are told, how things happen during the creative process, and would it matter if Rey was a Kenobi? This is Coffee with Kenobi. Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books but can't find the time? Try listening to them on audio, featuring sound effects, top-notch narrators, and music directly from the movies. Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Discover Thrawn's origins within the Chiss Ascendancy in the first title in an epic new Star Wars trilogy, beginning with Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy. Written by best-selling author Timothy Zahn and read by Mark Thompson, Thrawn Ascendancy is on sale now. And if you're looking for a full cast audio drama, don't forget to try Dr. Aphra, read by an all-star cast, including Mark Thompson, Catherine Tabor, Jonathan Davis, and more. Dr. Aphra is on sale now. Visit penguinrandomhouseaudio.com/Star Wars to listen to clips and find your next listen, or buy now wherever audiobooks are sold.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is your one-stop shop for your vacation needs and your plans to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or the cruise lines. Travel looks much different now than it did a couple of months ago, and with the opening of Walt Disney World and soon, hopefully, the opening of Disneyland, you need a place to go where you can trust, and they will help you figure out and navigate all the different circumstances and guidelines that Disney has put out for you. And I can say that we had our vacation modified, and as soon as dates were announced, MEI contacted me directly to help me reschedule, which is exactly what I was hoping to do. So if you are interested in rescheduling your vacation or want to try to plan a Walt Disney World, Disneyland vacation, or anywhere else you want to go on the planet, be sure to contact MEI and Mouse Fan Travel at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel. Their signature service and expert advice will help you maximize your vacation time and dollar, and they will help you figure out all the different changes and modifications going on at the Disney theme parks. They are amazing, and I can tell you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, the peace of mind that Becky Mencken and the crew at MEI and Mouse Fan Travel have given me is invaluable. If you're interested at all, again, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel. And, I could certainly get on a pretty massive soapbox about it as well. I certainly have in class, because once in a while, in fact, just last week, someone said to me, Mr. Zare, because as soon as they found out I wrote that book with Pablo, they're like, "Oh, okay, so I got to test this guy, right? I got to test Mr. Zare." So which I love. I love. They don't know what they're getting into. And they said, "Mr. Zare, didn't Anakin make C-3PO?" And I said, "Yeah, he did." And he goes, "Well, so Anakin gives it to Luke. Shouldn't Luke give it back to C-3PO because technically C-3PO is a Skywalker?" And I said, that would be like me making grilled cheese and saying that grilled cheese is a Zare. That doesn't make any sense. Or C-3PO is not organic. And he says, but why does Rey deserve the lightsaber? She's not a Skywalker. And I said, then we start talking about what does family mean? It's not always about blood. But I feel like that's kind of a pervasive attitude out there, Amiyrah, that somehow Rey has to be defined by the fact that she is or isn't a Kenobi or a Skywalker or a Solo or what have you.
I agree. Yeah. And what has been interesting to watch in the reactions to all of this is people thinking that they are entitled to something.
Yes.
Like, oh, well, we should have been told. And it's like, you don't need to be told anything. This is how they decided they wanted to end this. Like, you can't decree something as, someone who obviously does not work for Lucasfilm, but you're making a stink everywhere. It doesn't make sense to do that. It doesn't make sense to say that we were duped or they told us this or they gave us this inclination. Or I have seen a lot of, Kathy Kennedy mentioning going on as well. Well, she said this in this interview and this. I was like, she was saying what was happening at the moment. Do you guys not understand how any of that works? Like, if you're a fan of film, you understand how that works. Like, they will be in an interview and say in the moment what they can say to us in the moment. But things can change, just like we obviously learned from this interview with Daisy. She's like, first they said it was this, and then maybe a Kenobi, and then, Palpatine is a granddad. Like, that's how it works. And I understand that can be frustrating when you're not creating something, but we have no rights. We have no rights. Right. And no one should be shouting to the rooftops about how, they're doing our fandom wrong. They are not. No one's doing that to us. We're still getting the storylines that we can follow and characters we can love and fall in love with again. We're still getting that. So this uproar over, I don't even know how long that interview was, 4 minutes.
Yeah.
It just seems it's crazy to me. It literally is crazy to me to see the reaction to it when, number one, the movie's over. Let it go.
That's right. My wife says to me probably weekly, let it go, Elsa. I'll be ranting about something.
Right. Okay, can I just say, number one, Amiyrah, I'm in love with you too. Right. This is the thing that I always tell people, to echo what you said. Like, you are more than welcome to like or not like a piece of art or creation, but you cannot dictate what an artist does, because that's not how art works.
Right. Amen.
And that's exactly the problem here, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think part of it, and I understand to some degree, because I really try to be empathetic and think about like why people get so attached to these things, why it upsets them so deeply. And I think for so many of us, right, the mythos of Star Wars is so big, and in some ways it defines people's worldviews so deeply that they do want to feel like there was always, almost like a holy book level plan for the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it is cool that you connect to this particular creative, huge juggernaut that way. But like, it's so unrealistic to expect that something that collaborative would have. I mean, there are roots that have certainly been laid out for a long time, and a lot of these creators that are, fairly new to the Star Wars universe are still reaching back to source material that was, part of George Lucas's bank of ideas. But like, they're not just there as like acolytes to carry out something that someone else did. Like, they have to do their own creation as well.
And perhaps the most delicious piece of irony in this cake of fiction is that suddenly, in the 90s, it was very, in early 2000s, it was very, oh, George Lucas is ruining Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. Now everyone is decreeing from the rooftops, why didn't we go with George's plan? And I find that to be really kind of delicious because I appreciate the dramatic irony of that. And yes, I mean, whatever you like or don't like, that's wonderful. That I respect that. And I empathize. Look, I ranted that day at lunch with some of my other teacher buddies how I wish that Rey was a Kenobi. And we'll get to where the pros and cons, what that might have been. But to Amiyrah, I like that you said entitlement, because I think there is a degree of entitlement there. And we sort of live, not sort of, we 100% live in this culture where being an expert suddenly doesn't mean what it actually means. But if you were as someone at the highest level of entertainment, making billions of dollars for a company, this is not a decision that is made lightly, right? As you both said so beautifully, the creative process is such that it is malleable. It changes over time. Sometimes things look good on paper, and then when you start to shoot it, that doesn't work. So you have to make changes. And that's an organic part of the story and storytelling. And it's great. I mean, I'm pretty sure that when Stephen King sits down to write a book, and he's written, 10,000 of them? I think that's an exact number, by the way. It changes over time. That is a part of the process. And to tie yourself so intensely to anything that is fiction, you're just leading yourself to disappointment. And I certainly don't wish that for anyone. And honestly, The Phantom Menace, which I absolutely love, when I first saw that film, when I left the theater in 1999, the person I was with said, "What'd you think?" And I said, "I don't think I liked it." And I stayed up all night. And not because I had to do a lot of podcasts the next day, but because I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I just sort of got over myself and made peace with it. But I learned a valuable lesson. Don't anticipate, participate. Enjoy what's there. If there's something that you don't like, then critical thinking, intellectual honesty lead the way to a wonderful discussion. And that's great. But to get so tied up and to become so entitled that something is suddenly wrong because it's not what you wanted, I mean, that's what my kids did when they were 3 and 4. I just don't get that. That's probably the harshest I've ever been on the show.
This is what we do. Holly and I bring out the worst in you. We get
this would not be the first time someone said that about me. So.
No, I go ahead.
I interviewed someone lately who made a really great statement that I feel like applies here about like how it is okay to be critical of something, but it's easy to criticize. It's hard to be critical. Mm-hmm. And to really like look at something in a thoughtful way and take it in and really address it for what it is instead of just complaining about it.
Yes.
And like I said, I don't expect everybody to like everything about Star Wars, and certainly not the same things I like. I don't like everything that's ever been done in Star Wars. No. But it's so easy to say they should have done X, Y, or Z. And it's like, okay, but have you thought about why they actually made these choices? And it might not be the reason that you're down with, but that doesn't mean it's not worth considering.
Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said for, I think that criticism and being a critic, and you've done a lot of reviews of stuff, and stuff not only things that you like, but also, is this something that's okay for kids? I love reading your stuff about, is this something that is safe for kids to watch? What's the latest Disney Plus movie, theatrical release of something? I think that's good. I think it's a talent, because if you like everything or if you dislike everything, I feel like that, then I can't trust you as a critic. I mean, I think if you say your no makes your yeses have much more weight. So I tend to kind of roll my eyes politely when someone says that they like everything Star Wars and every story, because I think, well, really? Everything? I find that to be a little disingenuous.
Yeah, you need to actually take a minute to think about what you're viewing. And I love that Holly keeps bringing up that, this is art, and not every artistic piece is loved by every person all over the world. Some people are very passionate about it, and some people are like, what the heck is that? And that's how it should be. You have to be discerning about everything, even in our fandom. And it's great. And this is why I love being on here when you invite me on, is because we just, the two of us, we have things where you absolutely love them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Dan, absolutely not. And we can talk about that.
Yes.
And that's one of my favorite parts about being a Star Wars fan, is that when you're a fan, a genuine fan, you accept that others may like things that you don't, and you're excited to have those conversations with them. It's not something where you're going to dismiss them or, you know, you say that they're stupid for loving it. It's the heart of our fandom that we each pick what we love and we embrace it, and we can debate about it passionately, but also at the end of the debate, we can hug it out and just say, this is how we are. This is why we're all family.
This is the way.
This is the way. Listen, look at you. Look at you. And this is why it just seems silly to me. Everything that's happening and things that are being said about this interview, I hope in the end people realize what they're saying and they go, man, what was I thinking? Why did I even say that? That's what I'm hoping for those true fans to really go, man, I lost it for a minute over a 4-minute interview. I probably shouldn't have said all those things.
Right.
And then we can get back to work here.
Amen to that. Like, look, I love Star Wars. It's done so many great things for me, for my family. It's given me a second career. It's taken me literally all over the world, but it's not important. It's fun. It's a wonderful escape. I've met the two of you. I've met so many great people because of Star Wars, but it's supposed to be an escape. And if something doesn't work for you, then just like you said, Amiyrah, like there's nothing I like better than when someone disagrees with me, because I can learn from them. I can get their point of view. I can glean where they're coming from, and I can step out of my comfort zone and start to understand a different point of view, which is a very Star Wars thing anyway. So that's great. You can open up discourse, but if there are people that don't disagree and can't look at it intellectually or critically, that's fine. But at my table, I just don't have time for you.
Mm-hmm. I had a whole cartoon that ran in my head of, like, you know, you turning away someone with their cafeteria tray. Like,
that's right. Move along, buddy.
Table champ.
That's right. Or we pick up our trays and move to the other table. Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of school. All right, so before we wrap up, let's just indulge for a moment, because we're going to have some fun with this, and we're going to show that we can talk about Star Wars as we've been doing and see different sides of the cube, so to speak. So, Holly, let's just pretend that Rey was a Kenobi. Would that have changed your overall thoughts on this film or the mythology in general? And if so, how?
I'm trying to think of a nice way to put what's going on in my head.
Oh, I have faith in you.
Oh, that's misplaced. I feel like for many people, part of what made it appealing for Rey to be a Kenobi is that they like to imagine hot Ewan McGregor having romantic interludes, right? That's part of the appeal for people.
Well, that's mine for sure.
I mean, I didn't want to throw you under the bus, Dan, but which I get, but I feel like, to me, if that had been the case, this entire thing becomes a whole different level of heartbreak that would take some of the joy out of it. Not because I would think it's a bad idea, but I would spend all that time thinking about how he probably didn't know that he had a family that he could have gone to. You know what I mean? Like, he would have gotten cheated out of an entire lifetime, or even the choice to make, probably, right? Like, it presumes that he and Satine is the usual pairing, right? Not that he had some like mystery romance that we don't know about. Like, it makes that such a tragedy that it would kind of overshadow a lot of stuff for me. Yeah, I think that's my stance on that one.
Fair. And then it would add to this uncomfortable trope in Star Wars of absentee fathers, which I'm not a fan of.
Right.
So, Amiyrah, what about you? Would that have changed anything for you? Would it have enhanced or detracted if Rey was, in fact, a Kenobi?
I don't think so. I mean, if you would have asked me that after I saw The Force Awakens, I would have said absolutely, because I was on the Kenobi train after that. I really was like, oh, that would be great. And then they just messed it all up with The Last Jedi. Like, they messed it up for me. And I was like, you know what? She doesn't need that. And I think that I was able to let that go. And it would have been very complicated. And that's something that I don't think they would have been able to explain even in the 2 movies after The Force Awakens. Like, I don't think they would have been able to do enough for us to kind of get us on that mindset of her being a Kenobi. Like there would have had to been a lot of Rey storytelling, and there was so much other interactions going on in the storyline that they wouldn't have been able to give it enough time. And I think maybe that's probably why they didn't go with it. It's just it's very layered, and because Ben Kenobi is so beloved, they would have had to really like kind of step on eggshells with that. Like there was no way they could have tarnished him for us, and I don't think that would have gone over very well. So I think it would have changed things for me after seeing The Last Jedi, just because I was so in love with her being just a regular person who just happened to have these amazing connections to the Force. And I would have been like, oh, do we really have to? Do we really have to do this? So I'm glad that we didn't go down that path. And I know, we went down the Palpatine path, but I don't think that we would have been satisfied with her being a Kenobi in the long run.
Sure. No, I love both of your perspectives. I would say, I think the biggest challenge for me about Rey Palpatine is that I can't imagine Palpatine at the singles bar. How you doing? I just don't get that image. I don't want that image. Thank you.
Well, isn't it kind of hinted that his son was a clone?
Yeah, very. Oh no, it's directly stated in the novel.
Yeah, because let's face it, like
I like where this is going already. I love it.
Sheev Palpatine is bad boyfriend material. Like you don't want any part of that.
That's right.
I know some people are drawn to power, but I feel like he would be non-delightful in a relationship. And moreover, I don't think he would have cared about it. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
There's none of that.
And he could charge your phone for you with his finger, so that's about it.
I don't think he would. He'd be like, waste of my talents.
That's right. I broke it. Yeah. If Rey, I do wish that Rey would have been a nobody, because that would have made her more than it would have made her very much a somebody, because she again has to find her own path. I think the most fascinating thing about Rey, which we've seen about 2 1/3 of the sequel trilogy, is the internal struggle. I think the internal conflict is the most compelling thing in storytelling, because I think that is the most relatable. We're not all going to go against the Death Star or fight the Kraken or fight Apollo Creed, but we are going to fight our internal demons, and those battles never go away. That's one of the things I liked about Kanan Jarrus and Rebels, is that he conquered his demons, but then new ones showed up, because that's reality. We all, as adults, know that there are certain things that we struggle with, and then we take care of it, and then it comes back in a different form. And I think that's more real. That's, when the ancient Greeks created their heroes, that was sort of one of the impetuses for that is making something somewhat relatable, because you're not a superhero, but you can have super problems that seem daunting to you. And if she were a Kenobi, would I have loved it? Yes, I would have loved it. I thought it would have been great, but I didn't need it. I didn't follow any of the rumor stuff, of course. I have this wonderful ability because, again, as a kid, I didn't, literally when my wife said she's going Christmas shopping, I say, please don't tell me what stores you're going to. Why? Because I don't want to accidentally guess something. I like to be surprised. So I hid, that's a true story. So I hid from all rumors, all speculation. I muted Star Wars, everything on Twitter, all the main characters I muted, because I just don't want to know. I'd like to be surprised. And when I found out, I remember saying, okay, whatever. I guess ultimately it doesn't matter. Let's just kind of see where they take it. And there's still places they can go. But to say that it is retcon that Rey was going to be a Kenobi, that is simply not true. That is disingenuous. And there's no basis for it. She said we toyed with the idea. It's part of the creative process, part of how stories are told. And it is what it is, shall we say.
Would it not have broken your heart to think that Ben Kenobi spent all that time in the desert of Tatooine alone when he could have been with his family?
Exactly. See, on first blush, think, oh, cool, Rey's a Kenobi. That's cool. There's the lineage. But I think for some people, and again, boy, I'm breaking all the rules. People thought, oh, Rey can't be powerful because she's not a Skywalker Kenobi. Sorry, that's 100% wrong. Rey can be powerful because she's Rey. That's all that it needs to be. It's who she is. she had to fight her way to survive on Jakku by herself. It's not like Unkar Plutt is father knows best. He's probably the opposite of that. So yeah, if then on further review, if Kenobi was because he'd have to be a grandfather, because age-wise it just wouldn't have made any sense, because The Force Awakens is 3 years after anyway. It would have been very disappointing, because again, we don't need more absentee fathers. There's enough of that in the real world. We want love. We want compassion. We want someone to be nurturing, and that wouldn't have been the case. So it's best that it was left on the cutting room floor, and maybe that's why one of the reasons they did that.
I agree.
I would hope that was part of the decision process.
Yeah, I agree.
I love that you touched on something I definitely wanted to, reiterate, clarify.
Sure.
I feel like people get really attached to the idea of versions of movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we kind of have gone through it as a fandom with like the original trilogy, the special edition, and like people like to hash it out. For some people, conflict is super fun and they like to have that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Me, not so much. But I always feel like when I see discussions along these lines of something like this that comes out, there start to be these weird theories. I find them weird, where people are like, I bet so-and-so wanted to do this, and this other person in the mix kneecapped them and made an executive decision that it had to be this way. And like, one, as we have all been saying, like, film is collaborative and that's part of it. But two, like, the movie that came out is the movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's not like a secret cut of it lurking in a vault somewhere that they're like, but this is the real one, because they would have put that one out.
No one, Tanya Harding, your creators, everybody. Yeah. Yeah, we can blame the Snyder Cut for that, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I'm not even gonna touch that one.
Yes, the movie is the movie. That's what was made. That's what happened. And, good, bad, or indifferent, it made over $1 billion. Mm-hmm. So something went well. And we're still talking about it, which I think is a really fun thing.
I really, really wish I could time travel and just go forward, 15, 20 years and see how people are talking about the sequel trilogy.
Oh, they'll all love it. Just like Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. Right. That's something I bring up a lot, too, on Full of Sith, is that one of the things that I think we miss from, I hate to use the phrase the discourse, but like, from the fandom discussion now, is the kids, just by the nature of it, right? And like, we are at a point now where the people that were kids when the prequel trilogy came out are adults, and they can discuss and elaborate and talk about those films with the same love that those of us that are older have always talked about the original trilogy. And I love the prequels, but like, I can't wait to hear in that like 15 or 20 years what those people that are adults then, that are kids now, feel about it. And like, I want to hear their take as like a 23-year-old on what the Palpatine thing did to their brain when they were 9. Like,
Yes.
That's what I'm really excited about.
I agree. I mean, Mason, we don't really watch The Rise of Skywalker because the older boys are just like doing their own thing. But Mason, who's 7, he's scared of Palpatine. He thinks he's super scary and frightening. And quite honestly, he is in that movie. And that's okay. That's different strokes for different folks. But I agree. It's going to be very, time has a tendency to sort of change perspectives on things. And it will be interesting to see. Amiyrah, before we wrap up the show, any closing thoughts on this topic? Besides how much you enjoyed talking to Holly and me, of course.
I do. This was fantastic. Closing thoughts. I just think this is a little silly. I know I've said that already. The silliness behind it is comical to me. I don't think that it's as big of a deal as people want it to be. And I feel like we're in an energy right now where people are trying to make something very small into a big deal. But you have to enjoy that we're still pretty lively about our fandom, and that we can have conversations like this one, hop on a podcast and talk this out. And that we love it so much that the reactions to certain things can bring out the best and worst of us, but that it helps us really take a minute to kind of realize what we love the most about Star Wars. Even when it is very silly and comical, the reactions to certain things. But then you can have these long conversations like we did tonight and really talk about the things that matter to us and the things that maybe we should let go of. And what really is truly important to our fandom is that we love this story and everybody loves it in their own way. And we will never lose the passion for it. And I'm excited to see what else everybody's going to get all up in arms about, because it's entertaining to me. It really is very entertaining.
Get the popcorn, kids. Yeah. I love it. Holly, any closing thoughts for you?
I would hope it's kind of in the same vein of what Amiyrah said. I would hope that people, if there are people feeling genuine chagrin over this, I hope that they can take a step back and look at the bigger picture and realize that what's making them dismayed over something not turning out the way that they wished is really because they love this thing so much. And maybe just go back to the things that you love about it and focus on those, because that will ultimately make you happier. You can't change what came out in December, but what you can do is just either never watch that movie again and watch the ones you love, or watch it and look for the parts that you do love. Or, just find ways to engage with other content that you like, that gives you joy instead of chagrin.
That's right. Man does not live on Star Wars alone. There are plenty of other wonderful things out there, things you like, things you're not sure about. I also think it's kind of fun, and I challenge my students this all the time. Try to find pearls in things you're not sure about. What can you learn from it? What can you take from it? How can you take that and come up with, rhetoric and intelligent intellectual discourse? Let's talk about the narrative, why it was done, and I think you'll find a lot of peace in that.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Thank you. I have moments.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a cup of coffee with me, and for helping to spread the word about our Star Wars family we've got here at Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to tune in Monday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/live or www.facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi and have a cup of coffee, tea, or any beverage of your choosing with me as we continue the conversation. To join us in the CWK Cafe, which is our Facebook group, and share your Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler-free place that is also drama-free, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community and be part of the conversation, talk about this week's show, or just talk about some Star Wars. It is a lot of fun, and you'll make some new friends as well as catch up with longtime friends along the way. I also want to thank all of the new and longtime members of the CWK Alliance and let you know how much I appreciate your help and encouragement. A big thank you to our CWK Alliance members, Mary Perdue, Terrence King, Smooth Rivera, Dan Capurso, Aaron, Jim Tallman, J.C. Poe, Ed Kimoto, Greg McLaughlin, Robert Avila, Dustin Mills, Yancey Evans, Chelsea Sansbury, Connie Shee, Tyler Pompa, Hannah, Alex Procasio, Ian Thompson, David Nicely, Simbot Detradarian, Christine Turk, Kurt McKellen, Ross Halibin, Dan Ream, Colby Mead, Alexander Moylan, Frank Mulder, Blake Weaver, Jim Capron, Chris Metz, LJ Souter, Aaron Harris, Chris Skavarka, Jeff Ellis, Daz Davies, Susan Gray, Thea Selby, Christian Dale, Brian McKinney, Jason Hall, Jared Cantor, Eric Struthers, Mark Suter, Angela Sauce, and Dennis Keithley. If you want to join the CWK Alliance, be sure to go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/CWK Alliance and sign up today. Not only will you help out Coffee with Kenobi, but you also get access to CWK Pour Over, the exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. It's a great way to support and help out the show, and 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to support the incredibly important work they are doing to help these brave children and their families. Plus, contributors at the CWK All-Star level can watch a video podcast of CWK Pour Over, hosted by me, Tom Gross, and Corey Clubb. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. In addition to being part of the community on Facebook, please don't forget to visit our website at www.coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, live video, and so much more. If you have a question for me or just want to share your thoughts on the air, please feel free to reach out to me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com, and I'll share them on the show. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR. There are also a lot of ways to connect with me and Coffee with Kenobi on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, and check us out on Pinterest. You can find me twice a month on the podcast Looking at Lucasfilm, part of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, and you can find my writing on CWK's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I'm an official blogger there, as well as on IGN, where I contribute articles on Star Wars, as well as other popular culture topics. And if you're considering starting a podcast or a blog, let me know how I can help you get started and help you make your creative vision a reality. Be sure to check out danzmedia.com and we can get the process started. I'm also available to come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. You can take that first step into a larger world. Thanks as always to our CWK sponsors, especially MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, our travel partner and your one-stop shop for all things Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or anywhere on the planet. Please go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel to book your magical vacation and help support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. And don't forget to pre-order my brand new book that I wrote alongside Pablo Hidalgo and Cole Horton, the Star Wars book published by DK. Be sure to pre-order your copy of the Star Wars book today. I can't wait to share it with each and every one of you. If you like the show, please tweet out that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your friends and family to tune in and share a cup of coffee with us. And if the Force is especially with you, please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a huge difference and helps to spread the word. Go to iTunes and search Coffee with Kenobi and you'll see the show there. My circle of friends has grown so much because of this podcast and each and every one of you, and it means so much to me that we have such a wonderful Star Wars community. Thank you all so much for all you do. Very well, I can't tell the both of you enough how much I appreciate the both of you, your intelligence, your humor, your outlook on these things, and undoubtedly, if people are not already following you both already, they're going to want to do so after this conversation. So, Amiyrah, where can people find you and all of your wonderful work?
Well, my website is fourhatsandfrugal.com, so you guys can come over there and see our family fun and all the crazy, amazing things that our family of five loves to do. If you want to chat all things Star Wars, you can definitely find me over on Twitter. I'm Amiyrah Martin on Twitter. I also co-own the Star Wars Mom with a wonderful Star Wars fan named Liz Porter. So we actually have a Facebook group. You guys can come join us there. We have a Facebook page as well, and we talk all things Star Wars all the time in there. And you can find me on YouTube as well. I talk about Star Wars every once in a while over there. Same name, Amiyrah Martin. And I think that's it. That's everywhere.
I love it. And of course, you can see some of Amiyrah's greatest hits on the Target commercial too.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, Amiyrah, so much. And Holly, where can everyone find you? I know you mentioned quite a few podcasts at the top of the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm like, it's kind of a jerk list.
No, it's a beautiful list. You seriously are amazing. I can't.
I just picture people being like, another, really? Sit down.
No, it's great.
I will keep it short and sweet and say you can find all those podcasts I listed on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Full of Sith, of course, is at fullofsith.com and is everywhere on social media as Full of Sith. And you can find me on Twitter as Surliest Girl and on Instagram as SurlyGirly5. It'll tell you I'm getting very excited for the holidays because I have Star Wars holiday things planned.
Oh, I cannot wait.
they'll be all over Instagram.
Great.
I'm preparing for Batu and Harvest Festival right now.
Oh, great.
Gosh, I'm so excited.
Are you going back soon?
No. No, I have no interest in a crowd right now.
I don't blame you.
And I don't think they're doing it. It was a thing that came up in Cole's,
That's right.
His travel guide to Batu, the book that came out a few weeks back. And there's one page that mentions holidays on Batu, and one of them is Batu and Harvest Festival. One of them is they have a Life Day celebration there because lots of Wookiees hang out on Batu. And then they have like what they call Black Spire Day, which just happens to fall on May the 4th. So we'll get to that. But right now I'm all about Harvest Festival and Life Day plans.
I'm telling you, if I ever go into Batu and there's a Christmas tree next to the Millennium Falcon, I'm probably going to die on the spot from joy. It's going to happen.
Don't do that.
I mean, I'll come back as a Force Ghost, of course.
See, now I feel like you should smuggle a small Christmas tree in so you can do like a Force perspective photo of the Falcon and a Christmas tree together.
It's happening.
I like that challenge.
I love
Free
it.
ideas. I got them all day.
That's very good. Well, again, thank you both so very much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
Dan.
me.
Does it get any better than those two? Honestly, what a wonderful conversation. And again, thank you for indulging me as I certainly took a different perspective than we ever have in 7 years of Coffee with Kenobi. Normally we like to deal with what is as opposed to what might be or what could have been. But I felt like it was important to address it, and I knew that Holly and Amiyrah were the perfect people to talk about this with on the show. Be sure to join me Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time for CWK Live on Facebook. This week we're going to talk about your top 5 favorite moments or images involving Star Wars iconography. So any image, any silhouette, any poster, any character, starship, whatever it is, if that is a moment of Star Wars iconography that speaks to you, join us and let us know your thoughts on the top 5. It's so fun. It's incredibly interactive, probably the most interactive we've ever gotten to be on Coffee with Kenobi, so we would love to have you join us. Have a great week and weekend, everybody, and remember, this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.
Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies? Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Discover Thrawn's origins within the Chiss Ascendancy in the first title in an epic new Star Wars trilogy, beginning with Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy. Written by best-selling author Timothy Zahn and read by Mark Thompson, Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy is on sale now wherever audiobooks are sold.